Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Conscious Lover series dedicated to guiding men just like you to becoming the powerful and confident lover that the feminine desires. My name is Miko Lau, and I am a men's intimacy coach devoted to guiding men back to their hearts, to connect to their masculine core, and to create connections of true intimacy. And joining me today, we have Joshua. How do I say your last name?
Ludlam.
Ludlam.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't ask you beforehand. So, Joshua is a speaker and coach supporting men and women to take radical action and thrive in every area of their lives. And he is dubbed the BelongKing by some, where he focuses on how our fear of not belonging can cause us to flee from connection for fear of being rejected, or it causes us to fight to prove our belonging. Such powerful work that Joshua does. And I'm so honored that you get to join us today. Welcome to the series.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, so Joshua, let's get started with sharing a little bit about you. How did you get into this powerful work of teaching others about belonging, such important topic?
Yeah, like many, I got into this work because I saw a gap in my own life. And therefore, knowing that that gap was in my own life, I saw a gap in, the lives of others. I saw where other people were struggling with the same gap. And for me, I've always been a pursuer of what's the next thing to improve. And a lot of that came from my upbringing of feeling like I was never getting it right. And I went to college. I studied to be a youth pastor. I was going to take that feeling of not getting it right to youth ministry and to help teach people the Bible as a way of being able to really become the better versions of themselves. And along the way, I started realizing I didn't quite believe this anymore, nor did I see it really working the way that I wanted it to. So I started really diving into all the different areas of teachings that were outside of what was given to me. But really what I saw that the gap was for me as I look back on it now, I wasn't happy anywhere that I was. I was married for 10 years. I've got 2 children that came out of that relationship. And in that relationship, I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel happy. And I kept looking around the world and going like, something's wrong. I don't fit in here. I don't fit into this relationship. I don't fit into my work environment. I don't fit into my church environment. So I kept looking for things outside of myself to say, I want to belong to something. I want to be a part of something. I want to be somewhere where I feel like that the people that are around me think and feel like I do. And as I came to pursue those things outside of me, what I realized was that none of what I was looking for was outside of me. It was all this feeling that I didn't feel safe just to be able to be myself wherever I was. And so I did a TED Talk back in November of 2021. And one of the thing that we discovered, or that we uncovered in that, was the feeling of how not belonging can create a place where either we're fighting to belong or that we're running away from belonging. And in either case, fighting for belonging or running away from belonging doesn't serve us well in our relationships. It doesn't serve us well in being a conscious lover. And so the exploration that I've been in and that I bring to my clients and to the people that I converse with, whether I'm on a stage or one-to-one with them, is coming back to this feeling of being safe just to be ourselves with other people, to be our fully authentic selves with other people. And that belonging is about the feeling of safety in those moments to just be ourselves. And if we can do that in every relationship that we have, in every environment that we find ourselves in being ourselves, we will thrive in those environments. So that's the core of the work that I do and how I arrived here. And And it's my desire that every person knows how much that they belong so that they can thrive in every area of their life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joshua. And I always honor every individual that have been through the path, done the work, discover all of these powerful insights, and are now bringing what they know out there to serve other people. So on behalf of everyone that's listening right now that feels like, everything that you said really resonates, I want to say thank you on behalf of them, because I can speak for myself too. The sense of belonging, this feeling of safety within ourselves is so important. Yet where the gap is, I see in clients and working within myself, is that oftentimes we don't have a relationship with our own bodies, where
Mm-hmm.
feelings of safety is experienced in the body and not so much in our head.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like, do you work with clients in this way? How do you
Mm-hmm.
guide someone to experience a sense of safety and belonging within themselves?
Yeah, that's a very important question. That's a very important exploration of, if I'm waiting around for somebody else to make it safe for me to be myself, I might be waiting for a really long time. I think that's why people come to people like you and I, is because they can come to a place of being themselves. They know that they can come and not be judged in who they are, and they can practice that feeling of being themselves and realizing that the risk that they are afraid of, the thing that they're afraid of when they are themselves, which is people might judge me, people might isolate themselves from me, they might not choose me. If I'm just who I am, when they come to a place where they're seen for exactly who they are, still loved, still seen in their highest self, still appreciated for the human that they are, they can kind of lay the fears that they had aside and go, oh, it is safe for me to be this way. So there are all kinds of tools and practices I think people can come to that safety within themselves. I mean, literally almost any of the ancient practices that are there, whether it's yoga or breath work, or to some of the more modern practices like EFT tapping, like those types of things that are really designed to get you present into your body, are all tools that you can use. For me, I have found that that those tools can help open the door to, but there's no substitute for really being ourselves, and then sitting past the hard parts where I want to run away right now. I'm afraid that if I share this part of me with you, that you're going to reject me. So it would be easier for me just to not share it, to run away right now. That the practice of that, and I call it radical honesty. It's just I didn't derive that term. There's a book called Radical Honesty, which I got it from, and it's a practice that I have of everything that's coming up right now in this moment. If it's here, I'm going to be fully forthcoming with that, because there's not a substitute for being able to sit in a hard moment, have someone accept me, realize that the risk that I had, or the fear that I had of what I might risk, actually isn't true, and that I can stay and that I can feel safe to belong in my authentic self afterwards.
Yeah, I think there's a really important point that you're pointing out here, is about being in this presence of someone or something, the universe, whatever it is, being in that
Mm-hmm.
presence where you're fully accepted, fully loved, where you can feel fully safe. And that in itself is so potent in creating this healing. It's like allowing your nervous system and your body and your mind to have the experience of what it's
Mm-hmm.
like to belong and what it's like to be safe, to express yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful that we can go to people like you and I and just
Mm-hmm.
able to tap into that, because I also believe, when ultimately safety is something we generate from within, but at the beginning we can absolutely be a yes to receiving that space holding from other people.
Yeah, I think of it as a practice. Again, just like with any other of the tools that we might use, it's the practice of, until I can generate that safety for myself, then I can kind of allow someone to lend me what it feels like to be safe, what it feels like to, in my practice of authenticity, I give you permission to be able to go there. In my practice of authenticity, of being of my own safety to go there, I can teach you and pass on. I really feel it energetically. It's passing on energetically the feeling of safety, so that when you experience it, you go, oh, that's what it feels like to lay my guard down. Oh, that's what it feels like to be able to breathe. Oh, that's what it feels like to just be able to not worry about what you're going to think of me. Okay, I got it now. And when you can have that experience, that's when everything starts to change, because then you can duplicate that elsewhere, and then you can give that gift to other people of that experience of safety. Because I'll say this kind of in a transition to whatever is next, and I don't know exactly what's next as we talk about this, but I think there are two things to put it specific to what a conscious lover is presence, being present with the person that you're in lovership with, and being safety and being safe. So it's not, if I can feel safe, I am much more able to give that feeling of safety to someone else. Those two things are to me the biggest gifts of the masculine, is presence and safety. If as the masculine in the relationship, as the person who is bringing that safety, and by the way, I don't think that masculine is, I think that if you and I were in relationship, that you giving me that safety to be myself is also really important. It's not just the job of the man, but it is a masculine, it is a masculine trait to be able to create that safety. And if I can create that safety for you to be fully yourself in relationship, and you can bring all the parts of you to the relationship, and then I'm bringing all the parts of me to the relationship. Talk about accessing sexual freedom and creativity within the relationship, and just this deep safety to not have to feel like I have to go anywhere, and so that you don't have to feel like you have to run anywhere either. That's really the work of the conscious lover.
Yeah, thank you so much for emphasizing that it's not just the man's responsibility, or when we refer to masculine energy, it's not just, we're not really just referring to men, because there's a dynamic, it's an energy essence that lives within every one of us. It doesn't matter what gender we are. And my idea of this conscious lovership, it's where the masculine and feminine is in beautiful harmony, in a beautiful balance, where it's like this beautiful exchange of energy, both within ourselves and between our partners, that is very healing, that's very like, it magnifies each other and elevates us to like beautiful ecstasy and just next level of connection and intimacy. Such a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It really is. I saw something that you shared on your Facebook page recently about how that sometimes the men, or the masculine in the relationship, that you specifically said the men in the relationships have often abdicated, or I'm not going to use your words exactly, but they kind of have not taken on the responsibility of some of the masculine roles in the masculine energy of the relationship. And I think a lot of that is what I just described, that presence and that safety. And so what has happened is that the women, or the feminine in the relationships, have had to take on that masculine role, and it becomes a permanent role that is played in the relationship. And I think there are times when, I the balance that I bring to a relationship of the masculine and feminine, I'm very strong in both of them. And so sometimes the I like to be the receiver of and that very feminine energy. And sometimes I like to be the giver and then the masculine energy. And when I've got someone who is willing to play both of those roles with me, then it becomes very dynamic. It becomes always, again, that creative process or that sexual process. It's not one playing that role at all times because the other is deficient in it, or one having to default to holding the container of the relationship because the other one isn't present to the needs of the relationship. When you're both present and you're both playing together, you can dance in and out of, sometimes one leads and sometimes the other does, and it just becomes really dynamic and fun and creative.
Yeah, it's like that's how nature is constantly shifting and changing. So why are we not flowing with the same rhythm of the nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joshua, I'm very curious about the idea of belonging. I think you're one of the only expert that I have on so far that touch on this specific idea. So I'm curious, like, what do you see in your clients when you work with the men and the women in this space of belonging and cultivating the sense within them? What do you notice start to change in how they relate to their partners?
Oh, that's a really great question. And let me tell you how we actually get to belonging. So vulnerability to me is a big buzzword in our work, and Brene Brown has done such a great job of bringing it to our vernacular. And a place where I think, we when I think about vulnerability, it's saying I'm willing to put myself at risk for something so that I can have something better than what I currently have. So in relationship, that looks like I'm willing to put myself at risk of being seen and therefore being rejected so that I can be seen and accepted for exactly who I am and not for some pretend version of who I am. So vulnerability is the first step. And really the second step on the way to belonging is intimacy. And a lot of times we think about intimacy as like the feel good parts about being in relationship. It's it's the sex and then the snuggling afterwards, the feeling of like just deep connection that we have with somebody. And intimacy is also the parts where, again, I might, in sharing this part of me, I put myself at risk. And it feels like such a risk because to share that part of me wasn't safe growing up. It wasn't safe in my family environment, or it hasn't been safe in other partnerships. And so to share this part of me might feel risky. It might feel like, again, that I want to either hide a part of me or want to run away. And intimacy is staying in those moments, especially when I want to run away, especially when I'm so worried that in being this part of me that it's not going to be accepted. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be these big revelations of us. It could be any part of us that just doesn't feel safe, that could cause a threat, could cause us not to feel safe. I have found that the times when I can look at someone, the times when I have been able to share those parts of me that I was afraid that they might reject, and they look at me and go, okay, yeah, I'm that way too. Or, okay, yeah, I'm not that way, but I love that part of you. I wish I could see the world that way. Okay, I'm not that way, but that's safe here. When you sit in those hard parts, that's to me where the deepest intimacy and the deepest love. When somebody has shared those parts of me and I have granted them that authenticity, or I've granted them the freedom to be that authenticity without judgment, and you can just see their entire like body sink back and go, thank you for letting me be this and for not judging. That's when, to me, the most powerful love is
Isn't it?
shown and experienced.
Yeah,
And it's on the other side of what, once you sat with it, that belonging happens. And that belonging being that safety. I shared it. I was at risk. It was accepted. And I can be safe with that. So you asked specifically about with clients, what happens with that. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs addresses at the baseline, the really needs of our body. And then above that is belonging. And belonging, all of these needs are the gateway to, as it's put in that model, self-actualization. And I just call that thriving. And that's the place where I'm no longer having to prove myself, or I'm no longer running away from anything. And so my authenticity is not only safe, but it's welcomed. And then in relationships, what that means is that I'm no longer tiptoeing around any parts of the relationship. Or if I ever get to the point where I feel like I have to do that, that I can just go right back to that feeling of belonging. And I can trust that individual that's in front of me, that I'm in a relationship with. I can trust them to be able to, they accepted this part, of course they're going to accept this part. And so the communication levels obviously are increasing. The ability to just be able to go there, the ability to keep the energy between two individuals of like, there's no unclear energy here. There's no conversation that I'm having in the back of my head while I'm trying to be in relationship with you that are different from each other. It's congruent. It feels true. It feels honest in every moment. And there's no longer a reason to hide. And if there's no longer a reason to hide, then in those snuggle moments at the end of a beautiful sex session, it's nothing but connectedness. In those moments where the hard conversations are happening, we're getting through to the other side of this. And so you can have them intentionally, and you can have them all the way. And you still know that commitment to what this is there. And so we're going to get through it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Thank you for describing that. It's like the way I look at it is all these fears we hold inside our bodies about potentially being rejected or disliked or unloved, and all these ideas we make up inside our own minds about what others may think of us if we allow ourselves to be seen in a certain way. The moment we drop off those false illusions, like we unleash so much energy for deeper connections and genuine, intimate relationship and connections with people. It's all natural, when we clear those things out.
Yeah. I do want to address this idea of it being a false delusion that those things wouldn't be safe, because our experience of, we don't just believe false things because we want to believe false things. We believe them because it's been our experience. And so I'm careful that, yes, they can be false beliefs, and to label them as false when it's been my experience that it's true is not giving the due respect to the experience that I have. And so, not to call out the way that you use that, but just to make sure that anybody that's listening, it's hard to make that cognitive leap between that's a false belief, but it's been my experience, so it must be true. And so being able to see the experience that I have, that I can have an experience about something that might not be true, although it has been my experience that it is true. And if I can see past, so for instance, it was my experience that it wasn't safe to be myself. When I was myself, I was punished heavily for it as a child. And so it wasn't safe for me to do that. What happened was that I then overlaid that experience to every single relationship that I had. And the false belief was that everyone's going to be this way. The false belief is that I'm never safe because of this experience. And so when I can start teasing it apart that way. And I can go, let me give this person in this moment the opportunity to accept or reject me based off of this. And guess what? They might not accept me. And I would much rather have a relationship. I would much rather know that I'm not accepted for who I am. And so then now that I have an opportunity to create elsewhere, or to create, maybe even if this is the relationship that I am choosing in, to create that this is who I am. And I want to be accepted and loved through this. And I would much rather be rejected and know the truth of that, know where I am and where I stand and what I get to do in order to be on the other side of that, which is to be fully accepted for exactly who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad, Joshua, that you point out that distinction with really honoring what's real for us and the experiences that we have had. And oftentimes, I mean, I've been there myself when I'm doing this deep inner healing work, and almost like this spiritual bypassing that this is false belief, this is an illusion. But when we are not fully integrated, when we haven't fully allowed space and time to really sit and honor our experiences, it doesn't serve us when we just jump right and say, this is a false belief, I get to overcome it now. And that oftentimes can cause more harm than true healing. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And it's fun too, because I can look at it and I can when I can see it as a false belief, and so I can choose something else that works for me. I think that's a really powerful frame for it. And when we are not acknowledging our experience, we do the term, it definitely feels like bypassing. It's saying, it's looking at that thing and going, that the experience might be true, even though the belief might not be the best or the highest possibility, and therefore it's not the full truth, at least.
Yeah, this leads me to ask you this question, because given what we talked about, clearly this is almost like a lifetime practice to to do this work. It's not something that we can just be done with and like, this is it, I'm healed.
Yeah, that's exactly. I talk about that in my TED Talk, and I talk about it often. Is, people will say something like, oh, well, you've got this all figured out, or like, oh, or I hear people say stuff like, to me, like, oh, well, not everybody's perfect. It's like, well, first of all, I don't think that I am. I think that I've come to an understanding of this that feels really alive and rich. And even as I was preparing this TED Talk, I was confronted over and over again with this feeling of not belonging, and realizing that it is a practice, and that there's never an end, and that it is, I think it's the big lie that we have been sold as humans, is that we are separate from each other. And so because it's the big lie that we've all bought, it's a collective feeling that we have, that we're separate from each other. And so because it's a collective feeling, we're constantly given more evidence that I don't belong. We're constantly given more evidence that we are separate from each other. And so it's a constant remembering. I practice this feeling of belonging on a daily basis, because the minute that I feel like that I've got it is the time when I'm confronted with it the hardest. It's the time when I realize that, like, the universe, the people that are around me, or even within my own self, I'll be hit with, yeah, this is why we practice it. This is why we practice it.
Yeah, and I got this powerful, almost like visceral, like receiving of your message just now. It's like this feeling of belonging. It's also like the idea of belonging one with the universe. And when we can truly feel that in the body, it's almost like we open up so much things to come to us and allow things to happen for us, instead of feeling like this alone human trying to figure everything out, trying to solve every problem. And it's this sense of relief, this sense of, I can relax, I can surrender,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not doing this on my own.
Mm-hmm. There, we talked about belonging with other people. We talked about belonging to the universe, and then there's also a part of that that's about belonging to myself. And I see so much of what we do as humans is like the things that we do in life, the sometimes even like this work sometimes can be a distraction from, if I'm helping somebody else, then I can offload my own work sometimes. And belonging to myself is feeling safe that the parts of me that I like to judge about myself, that I like to go like, that's not safe here for other people. It's, if I'm judging it with myself, then I'm not feeling safe to be my authentic self with myself. Like, how silly is that? I'm the only one here, and yet we still judge ourselves for the parts of us that we're not getting right. And so there's a belonging with ourself. And then I also see this as choosing into belonging. So I'm going to choose to feel safe to be myself, even if you don't choose me. And so if I've chosen that I belong to myself, then I am not at risk. And if I also belong within the greater, like the universe, and I belong there, then I can trust that I belong with you, even though you might want to put up your guards about that. So I can go in and be myself, knowing that should you choose me, great. Now I've got a deeper connection. Should you not, that's okay too, because I also feel safe here and I belong to myself. And so it allows me to make quicker inroads to deep communication, and therefore deep connection, without all the like back and forth. Do I trust you? Do you trust me? I trust me. So I'm going to go in and be myself and know that I'm safe, whether you choose me or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that to me is a conscious way of loving and connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people. And now, as a way to wrap up this entire conversation, I'm curious, Joshua, where do you see this work and cultivating the sense of belonging in humans, and where do you see it go with the
Mm-hmm.
entire like humanity?
So if I'm experiencing that belonging for myself, and I'm giving it to, again, let's tie this back into the conscious lover. We've talked about stuff that hasn't been about lovership, but really it's all about lovership. It's all about, if I can be in love with myself, then I can show up and grant you that same love, and grant you that same safety to be your authentic self, and love you that deeply, that you can love yourself that deeply, that you feel safe to be exactly who you are. It's when I have experienced it for myself, there is no way in the world that I am going to withhold that from other people. And so for me, it's the being in lovership with someone allows me to be able to pass the gift of belonging on to them, and allow them, and in fact, my call to action about all of this is, once you've experienced that you're passing it on to the people that are around you. So I know there will be a lot of people that will be listening to this that have either families or communities that they are associated with, whether it's their church community or civic communities or their businesses. They have people that are a part of their businesses or a part of their circles that it's, obviously not just them and a lover that they are responsible for. And if you can pass that gift on, and really start treating everyone around you as you would a lover, as you would of that belonging, creating that belonging for someone, that it trickles out to where my vision is that everyone in the world begins to experience belonging, and that everyone then is thriving because they know that they belong and they don't have to hide a single part of them. And that takes one by one turning that conversation out to not only am I going to feel safe within myself to be myself, I'm going to create permission for you to do that. And I'm going to create opportunity for you to practice being yourself and to feel safe to do that as well.
It's a ripple effect. It touches
Mm-hmm.
everyone. And I'm just so honored that Joshua, you get to touch our audience today, touch me. I really received the energy from you, this transmission. It is so potent. It is just, I hope everyone listening right now also received the permission that we got from you to be authentic and to experience a sense of belonging just by tuning in. Because I definitely felt that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so Joshua, if anyone in the listeners right now would love to stay in touch with you, maybe learn more from you, how can they find you?
The easiest way is to go to joshualudlam.com, and that's Joshua, Ludlam.com. I have there, if you want to hear the TED Talk, there's a link to it there. And then you can just sign up and connect with me. I've got all my socials that are there. I share a lot on Facebook, and also sign up to be able to stay connected. I have access to information there about the programs that I do, and also just to be in, I send out a weekly email that includes just a deeper way of practicing belonging. So if you want to stay in the conversation about belonging and what that means for relationship and the rest of your life, that's the best way to find me.
Thank you so much, Joshua. So definitely go stay connected with Joshua. And I am empowering all of you listening right now to share one thing that really resonated with you, that you took away from this conversation for further integration, by going onto our Facebook group and share this with the community and share this conversation with anyone in your life that can receive this powerful transmission. So with that said, I cannot wait to see all of you again on our next conversation. Take care.